As maybe like many of you, I'm also define myself with the work I do, for better or worse. And I'm an architect. I have a company called Superpool. The company is a joint endeavor with my husband, my partner also, and we have had it since 2006 in Karaköy. The last project we did, maybe you might have seen it, is the design of the design biennial in last November. So maybe you have been in the space. We were in charge of the design. So obviously design is all about perspective and keeping changing your perspective. It's always how you look at a problem. You have to look at it in a fresh way so you can come up with a good idea for whatever you're searching. My journey as an architect started in ITU, and for several reasons I had to leave there, and I ended up in Los Angeles. So that's also was a great change of perspective for me, to leave sort of in some ways the claustrophobic environment of Turkey to go and be in a place where it didn't really matter what you were, where you came from. What mattered was how you did what you were supposed to do. So I worked like crazy, like many of us in this room, 24 hours, was really happy to be in the school all the time, and then basically started a career. Then I ended up working in Holland for a company called Office for Metropolitan Architecture. It's quite famous if you know architecture a bit, and the office is in Rotterdam. And in the office, the most amazing thing is that every little thing, including the coat hanger, is put to scrutiny. You have to design the most interesting coat hanger. You have to design the most interesting wall. So that wall is sort of studied for, I don't know, months. They do many, many mock-ups. There's tons of kind of interesting things always lying around. This is one of the bigger projects that happened while I was in OMA, a skyscraper in China, but it doesn't look like any other skyscraper, you know. It's kind of a donut. But even when we knew what it was supposed to look like, it still took, I don't know, 2 years to figure out how exactly it was going to be. And it meant like you had to look at what the facade should be like, what kind of structural system it should have, etc. One of the projects that I'm really proud of for working on while at OMA was this theater project. And again, our ambition was to do a theater that didn't look like any other theater or work like one. I'll go back one slide. So this space here is where the stage is. Normally, theaters, you never see the stage from the outside. It's always surrounded with all the kind of supporting functions of the dressing rooms, etc. So here we wanted to really desperately do a stage that could have communication directly to the outdoors, that you could drive a car in, or if you wanted, the audience could just leave, or whatever, Queen Elizabeth could walk in from just the street. So that was sort of the dream. And it was, of course, because it wanted to be so transparent, it could only have very few legs touching the ground, so you have this huge volume that only touches the ground with 6 very slender legs. And the facade had to be very exciting too. You know, so everything is kind of put to test. One of the projects of the office is also redesigning the EU flag. So it's sort of the idea of research and design kind of expands out even to the poor EU flag. So, but then of course we come back. So this is then with Gregers, my partner. So we ended up. He's from Denmark, so we ended up in Istanbul. Very consciously making a decision to come back here because we were sort of done with being in Rotterdam and New York. It was time for a change again, and we could go to Copenhagen, but what could we really add to Copenhagen? Not so much. But what could we add to Istanbul? Maybe quite a lot. So that was sort of there's always a desire to be useful, like I guess many of us also have talked about feeling fulfilled. And then we thought, okay, you know, if we want to be architects, if we want to look at things, let's go to the biggest laboratory of architecture in the world, or one of, let's be in Istanbul. But what we have done is not too many buildings, because we think it's more interesting to look at things that make this city, to understand the city before we feel like we should do buildings. There's so many architects who do buildings. Are they good? I don't know. Some are good, some are bad. They're mostly done with motivation to make money. We're not so interested in that yet. Maybe that will change in time. But for now, it's okay to be a small office to do what we want to do. And in that sense, we started with a series of maps. This was the Dolmuş minibus map, which kind of started as a joke. It was really like, okay, who needs a Dolmuş minibus map? Nobody. But we wanted to do it because we wanted to see what the extent of the Dolmuş minibus network was like. So actually, Yandex wants to talk to us tomorrow. I don't know for what, but we'll see on the dolmuş issue. It's, so this map was produced for sale. It was a part of a souvenir company in Canyon called Takeaway Istanbul, and it was overpriced. No one really bought it, but it became very famous in the academic world as a curiosity. So who are these people who want to map the dolmuş system? Nobody has done it before. It's like, what is the dolmuş system anyway? We are a lot of people who are interested in our practices, usually Germans, actually. In a funny way, we have a quite big audience in Germany, not maybe so much yet in Istanbul. But we then did a much more serious project called Mapping Istanbul. This was commissioned by Garanti Gallery. It has a lot of maps inside it to look at where is Istanbul in the country. So this is the education levels. For me, very emotional map, because we always talk about the East and the West. Here you see it. There is an East and there is a West of this country. So what are we going to do about that? So the growth of Istanbul, education levels, bus routes, bazaars, it became an exhibition, and so on. Then we were asked to work for Audi to imagine the future of Istanbul, mobility. There's always things that we come back to as issues, like, yes, we have a traffic problem, but what we have as a problem is actually this. We cannot walk. If we could walk, we would not have a traffic problem. So this, there is nothing really. Yeah, this is, yeah, the baby survived. He's 4 years old now. They will pass through eventually. Anyhow, but basically to understand our issues as Istanbulis, we love to complain about traffic, but is it really, do we really want to drive in the city, or is there alternative things that we could move with, like walking, very simple. So we had a thesis to say the future of democracy is in the streets where cars freed up space for park. We wanted to talk about streets, we wanted to talk about park spaces, etc. This is 1 year before Gezi Parkı, and we feel very kind of somehow encouraged in some ways that yeah, we managed to save a park. This is crazy good. We have an interest in mapping, but we want to get a wider audience. We want to talk about the issues of the city, so we started doing these monthly columns in the Haute magazine. So this was how to get to different parks with public transportation. Again, this map was done before Gezi Parkı. It became very, very kind of circulated during those times. So yeah, bus routes and so forth. So here I'll show a quick architecture project. Again, how we try to approach architecture is to do something that's slightly different than what we are accustomed to do architecture or see architecture. So this is a site in Şişli where they wanted to design this high school, redesign this building. It has a 20-meter drop, so it's very steep, like a lot of places in Istanbul. And usually in Istanbul, we see kind of steepness as a problem. We never really use it. But it means like if you have a 20-meter drop, it means it's already a 5-story building. So you don't really need to build anything in a way. You could just do ramps. And this was our proposal for the high school. Let's do basically a high school that was almost only a garden. We didn't win. The jury told us it's a great idea. We know you're the future, but we're not there yet. We said, okay, fine. We're young. We can wait. But then we have done other research projects that I will run quickly, because I think once you're interested in knowing how things work or how researching, then there's kind of sky is the limit on how many questions you can ask. So here is a project that looks at how robotics can be employed in concrete industry for making complex shapes. So we work together with 14 other partners to develop systems where, yeah, basically robots could be employed in construction. This is a 4-year research project, so it's, and then it ended with this kind of demonstrator project in Denmark. So very recently, I'm also part of Columbia University's Studio-X project, which is a laboratory, urban laboratory in Istanbul. It belongs to the architecture school, and we have a 600 square meter space right across almost from Istanbul Modern, where we do our own projects, and we collaborate a lot. It's a very lightweight kind of staff. We are only 2 people, more or less. So the projects that we bring in are always collaborations. And we collaborated with artists. This is from the opening. It was very widely attended. And that is also an idea of how to think through a university in a different way. So what is a global university? Is it really enough to be just in New York? How does a university go out and become global? And in that sense, I think Colombia has an interesting answer. They say, okay, let's open these platforms of conversation where we provide a little bit of infrastructure to make it happen, and then learn from that, instead of just going out there and selling the same old coffee like Starbucks does in every new location. So there's 6 locations around the world. This is one of the first projects we did, was called Cemetery of Architects, because the space deals with the future of Istanbul, but at the same time it has to look at sort of the past. We have a very turbulent 100 years behind us, so that's something to look at. And it came together with a publication. It's the work of Tayfun Sertaç. We worked on prisons, we worked with children, and many other projects. I will leave it with this slide of children, because I think it's quite important for us, also as parents, and hopefully Istanbul is also, to realize that this is the city that our kids are drawing now. They're drawing their house, they're drawing the Devlet Okulu and Benim Okul, and in between they have these roads and some service cars. So I think it's really an important asset, a city. We like it, we hate it, whatever, but we share it. It's what we share the most intimately all together. So I think it's very, for me, you know, forget about architecture. It's so interesting to work on the city. And it would be quite amazing to invite all of you to join in the conversation.